So I'm sitting here during my daughter's soccer practice as it rains. Actually, it's hailing outside. And I'm thinking about a video that I posted recently about what I feel are the 10 most undervalued Hall of Famer rookie cards of all time. And I did this in a 2-video series where I laid out each of the 10 that I thought were undervalued and why I thought they were undervalued. And I was thinking about some of the feedback that I got. And there's one thing that people continue to mention, and I really feel like I need to revisit it. The question or the assertion or the curiosity from a lot of people are these cards undervalued because they're double prints? Are these cards undervalued because they have large print runs or there's high pop reports? So I'm going to take a look at those 10 cards that I feel are extremely undervalued for the quality of the player. And I'm going to look at the pop reports. And I'm going to see, is that the reason that the cards are not selling for more than I think that they should be going for? So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take a look at those 10 cards, the pop reports. We'll compare them to another card in that set to see, is it that these cards are easy to come by or are they just undervalued? Because as we know, supply and demand are what set the price of anything. And maybe it's the supply. Maybe there's a bunch of these available and it outweighs the demand for the card. Let's take a look, check it out, and see what the real reason is that these cards are undervalued.
All right, so if you want a full explanation as to why I chose these 10 Hall of Fame rookie cards as the most undervalued, check out that video I referenced in the opening. That said, one of the 10 is a 1957 Topps Frank Robinson. And again, here what we're focusing on is the pop report. Is the reason this card is so inexpensive is because it's a double print, or there are so many of them available? Because the supply side of economics and of prices is something that we do need to be paying attention to. So let's take a look at the pop report as it comes to this particular card. So we can see here that there have been about 5,000 Frank Robinson rookies. And I've highlighted here the PSA 5. There's about 1,000 of those out there. And I'm comparing it to a Brooks Robinson, also from the same year, a 57 Topps. And there is about 1,500 more graded Frank Robinsons than Brooks Robinsons. And if we're looking at PSA 5, it's quite a bit more, so that might have something to do with it. When we look at the 1948 Bowman Warren Spahn, one of his rookie cards, this is a PSA 4 because it's in the 40s. Again, I choose a grade that goes with the decade that the card comes from. But to me, Warren Spahn is one of the best left-handed pitchers of all time. And again, I go into great detail in the video that I referenced as to why I think he is so good and not really appreciated for all that he accomplished in his career. But when we look at this card, which is only $350 for a 48 Bowman, we want to then take a look at the pop report for this card. Right, so here we have it. This is a 48 Warren Spahn, and you can see here there's only 1,200 or so, almost 1,300 Warren Spahn 48 Bowmans graded. Now, when we compare that to the Yogi Berra 48 Bowman, there are 1,645 Yogi Berras. Now, in the 4 grade that we reference here, there are 50 less than the Yogi Berra. All right, next up we have the 1965 Steve Carlton, another one of the best left-handed pitchers of all time. And this card in a PSA 6, because it's from the 1960s, sells for $260. At least it did in a recent eBay sale. Now again, I'll continue to say this, that you can see a lot of his accolades and why I think he's one of the best pitchers of all time in that original video of the top Hall of Fame players with undervalued rookie cards. But as we look at this particular card and we take a look at the Pop report, when we look at it here, you can see that there are about 6,000 Steve Carlton rookie cards that have been graded by PSA. About 1,100 earned a 6. Now, when we compare that to another 65 rookie card, in this case, the Joe Morgan, there's only about 4,000 Joe Morgans. So there are a couple of thousand more Steve Carltons out there that have been graded than Joe Morgans. So the next one we have is Harmon Killebrew. Now, the 1955 Harmon Killebrew is one of my favorite cards. I love the set so much. I love this card a lot. But in a PSA 5, this card recently sold for $375. And you think, man, this guy was one of the best home run hitters of all time. He is from an iconic set. It's an awesome looking card. Why wouldn't this card sell for more? So again, it's partially, I'm sure, because he's from a smaller market. He was somewhat of a one-dimensional player. But when we look at the Pop report here, you'll see when we compare it to Sandy Koufax, the Sandy Koufax rookie card is worth, 5 times a Harmon Killebrew's. But there are 3,000 more that have been graded. And in a PSA 5, there's about 40% more have been graded of the Koufax than the Killebrew. So in this case, the Killebrew is much more scarce than the Sandy Koufax. Now, Bob Gibson, his is a high number. His rookie card is a high number card. And a lot of people made reference to that in the original video. And you can see here that it's a PSA 5, and it sold for about $710. And because it's a high number, you say, oh, well, then it's going to be a lot harder to come by because the high numbers are so much more rare. So that is one of the reasons why you would think that the rookie card of Bob Gibson would be even higher than it is. Because 710 seems low, especially for a high number. Well, when we look at the Pop report here, indeed, when we compare it to another star of that year, we have Roberto Clemente. He's got about 6,000 have been graded. Only 4,500 Bob Gibsons. And in a 5, there's a good 35% more or so of Roberto Clemente than Bob Gibson. So the Bob Gibson card, it's not like there's a million of them out there. There's only 4,500 that have been graded. Next up, Jim Palmer. This one seems so inexpensive at $114 for a PSA 6. So it's a little bit of a newer card. So the thought process might be, well, one of the reasons that this card isn't selling for more is it's newer. There's probably a lot more in a high condition. There are a lot more available out there, as, it's 10 years newer than, say, a Harmon Killebrew type guy. And so that would be part of the reason that the card would not be selling for more than it is. When we look at the Pop report for the Jim Palmer, there's only 4,000 that have ever been graded. And when you look at the 6, there's about 900 of them, but there's only about 1,300 that have ever been graded higher. So this is not a super common card to have in a high grade. This card really seems like it should be more. Willie McCovey, really hard card. Hard to find this card centered. Lots of print spots all over this card historically. So it's very difficult to get a high grade of it. This one's in a PSA 6 because it's a 1960 card. It's got the cool, rookie trophy on it, and it's, $346 that it sold for. And when we look at the Pop report here, there's only 4,700 of them. Now, there are 1,000 sixes, but there's only about 1,000 that have ever been graded in a 7, 8, or a 9. There's never been a 10. So, if you buy a 6 for this $350 or so, there's only 1,000 in existence that have ever been graded higher. I mean, I don't get it. Don Sutton, again, the previous video, which I hope that you check out if you haven't, goes into great detail about his career accolades. And he just was a consistent pitcher who rattled off wins, who rattled off strikeouts, who was effective for a very long time. And his rookie card is $85. And when we look at it, there's only 2,185 that have ever been graded by PSA. We compare that to like a Sandy Koufax. Sandy Koufax in that year, there's 4,200 of them. There's only 475 or so in a 6. There's less than 1,000 that have ever been graded higher. Not a super common card. So the Pop reports on a lot of these are right around $4,000. We got Carl Yastrzemski here. Another hard card from that 60 set. Lots of printer marks are common on this card. And this one also is fairly hard to find centered. Not as hard as the McCovey. But it's got the rookie star, the Sport magazine thing. Now this one, though, when you look at it, has about 8,700 have been graded. And there are over 2,000 in a 6. So this one kind of makes me think, well, the reason the Yastrzemski isn't worth more is because there are so many more out there. Kind of makes sense for the Yastrzemski. It doesn't for some, but it does for others. Gaylord Perry, another highly effective pitcher for a very long time. You got the rookie star logo up in the top right. I recently bought one of these at a card show. I love the card so much. I think it's a cool looking photo of him. The 62 set is such a difficult set to find in good condition. And when we look at it, there's only 2,000 that have ever been graded. So some of these we've seen, Yastrzemski was over 8,000. Some of these have been about 4,000. But Gaylord Perry, there's only about 2,000. And Gaylord Perry in the 6, there's only, 550. There's only about 600 that have ever been graded higher. There's no 10s. There's 12 9s. So it's interesting to look at when you see these that in a couple of them, they have high population reports. But in others, the Pop report is quite low.